Good. Hello class, my name is Bryce Refutation, and I'm going to be responding to the claim that drinking coffee has a positive effect on one's overall health. So my opponent's secondary claims were that coffee creates a culture, coffee can reduce your risk of type 2 diabetes, and coffee can help you live longer. So for my opponent's first secondary claim, where coffee creates a culture, her evidence was that she took a statement from the Starbucks company, which is a well-known coffee company, and her statement was basically that coffee can help bring people together in their coffee houses. Well, there's a problem with that because it is a biased source and is unreliable to use as a testimony. And her second piece of evidence for that secondary claim is that her personal anecdote where she said that a lot of people would prefer to study at a coffee house because it is peaceful. I don't remember the exact quote, but somewhere along the lines of that. Well, according to Kelly Roll, the author of Ace That ACT, she states that libraries are a better choice to study than coffee houses because libraries are quieter and have more information that is readily available to you. So for my opponent's secondary claim where coffee can reduce your risk of type 2 diabetes, I will be responding with the National Institute of Diabetes and Digestive and Kidney Diseases, where they state that exercise is a great way to reduce your risk of type 2 diabetes. For example, they recommend that people would have at least 30 minutes a day for 5 days out of the week to dedicate to exercising. But some people may ask, but Bryce, I'm a student at Cal Poly, I don't have that much time, and I had work, and so all of that, like I can't spend 5 hours a day lifting weights and trying to look like Dwayne Johnson. But there are simple substitutions that you can do here at Cal Poly. Like for example, instead of like taking the shuttle to your parked car in the parking structure, you can walk there, and that'll easily take up like 10 minutes. And you can also, instead of taking the elevator to this amazing classroom, you can walk up the 3 floors, and that will add to those 30 minutes. So it's just simple things like that that can help to fill up that minimum of 30 minutes. And also, it's not just the physical aspect that will lead to a healthier or a lower risk of type 2 diabetes. It's also like the mental aspect. For example, like the NIDDK, which is the National Institute of Diabetes, they recommend reading a book, taking a long hot shower, and other ways such as meditation to help reduce stress in your life. So for my opponent's final secondary claim, where they state that coffee can help you live longer, but according to the European Society of Cardiology, they conducted a study of 1,200 people ages 18 to 15 with hypertension, which is high blood pressure, and they studied them for over 12 years and found that people that consider themselves a moderate coffee drinker, which is someone that drinks 1 to 3 cups of coffee a day, have tripled their chances of having heart complications, and these included but are not limited to heart attack, stroke, artery disease, and kidney failure. And this is even worse for people that consider themselves heavy coffee drinkers, and their chances are increased fourfold. But also in this study, it was conducted with people with high blood pressure, but there's also been shown to have a linear effect with people with non-high blood pressure. At the end of the study, Dr. Luis Mos, which is the director of the study, concluded that people should be aware that coffee consumption may increase their risk of developing more severe hypertension and diabetes in later life, and should consider consumption to a minimum. And so to conclude my points is that coffee is good, but try to drink it in moderation.
All right, structural stuff is all solid. On the first point, you have a nice challenge about the legitimacy of Starbucks as a source for suggesting that drinking coffee is a good idea. I can understand why that might seem a little biased and self-serving. The personal anecdote, you kind of attack that by suggesting that it's not really general enough to make an inference from, and you have an authority that you cite that suggests, for instance, if you're studying for exams, that the library is a better place for doing that, and so we've got a little bit of expertise to measure against that. So I thought that there was a nice kind of interplay between the arguments on that first point. On the second point, there's not a lot of discussion of what the advocate's own evidence says on these particular points. You basically suggest that there are alternative ways that we can diminish the risk of diabetes, and you talk about those kinds of things. I guess the goal here is to diminish the significance of consuming coffee and suggest that there are dozens of other ways or many other ways that you could have the beneficial effects, and I think that that's, again, a reasonable strategy. I do think you need to explain it a little bit more. Why is it I'm listening to suggestions about exercise in this particular situation? Because your point is that there are lots of ways to reduce this. Instead of spending 30 minutes in the coffee house every day sucking down a Starbucks that you paid $5 for, you could spend 10 minutes walking to class, 10 minutes going up and down the stairs, and 10 minutes walking back to class or back from class, and you get your 30 minutes of exercise in, and you didn't have to spend $5, and you get the same kind of beneficial effect. That's the way you kind of want to explain it. You know, that's why you're talking about it. So remember when we talked the other day about explain the impact of your argument on the advocate's claim. You needed to do that just a little bit more on that particular point. Then, by the way, I feel like I should go home and read, take a shower, and meditate a little bit today, because I really need to reduce some of that stress. And then I think on the third point, third point's all counterclaim. There's not really much examination of the advocate's evidence and information on this, but you instead present a substantial amount of information suggesting that there are negative consequences of overconsumption of coffee. At the very end, you kind of diminish that by suggesting, it's okay to drink coffee, just don't overdo it. I understand the impulse to do that. I think the argument about moderation is okay, although it says moderate coffee drinkers have a 3-time greater risk. So when you suggest moderation at the end, I'm going, well, wait a second, didn't you just tell me that moderation is still problematic? So maybe you want to be a little bit careful about that and simply say, drink coffee at your own risk, but don't assume that it's going to make you better, because there's a good chance it's going to make you worse. That's probably the way you need to finish instead of that moderation claim, okay? All right.